I know, it took me about 30 forevers to get to it, but I finally managed to get around to making episode 35 of Low Budget Gaming, and just to warn you, it'll probably take me a few more forevers to get to episode 36. Told you so. At long last, I can come to the conclusion of something that I never really planned to do from the start, and which I probably could have finished a lot quicker if the playlist for my other two shows weren't so barren, my impromptu Trilogy of Revisits. Also, I hope you'll forgive the mic being in shot like this. I did away with my clip-on mic as I wasn't really satisfied with the way it sounded and I haven't found a suitable replacement for it yet. I could have tried to hide this, but let's be honest, we all know the audio from my voice is going to come from somewhere, and I'm hardly going to use the camera mic, especially since one of my cameras is all the way over there. Anyway, Crusader No Remorse was the second game that I ever played for the channel. Much like the original video for The Last Express, I hesitate to call it a review, as it was basically a glorified Let's Play, one which I seem to recall doing on a lack of sleep as well. Anyway, when I made the Wall of Worthiness and put all pre-wall games on it based on my initial impressions, I put Crusader in the worth a look section, as I seem to remember my first sleep-addled impression of it being, yeah, I'd play it again, I guess. Well, now I'm playing it again. And may Zarkon have mercy on us all. Not really gonna spend a whole lot of time on the story here, as it's about as basic as it gets. It's your typical dystopian future setting, corrupt government versus rebellious resistance kind of thing. In this case, the corrupt government role is filled by the WEC, the World Economic Consortium, which took control of the planet in the year 2195, and to say they've been ruling with an iron fist would be something of an understatement, with the citizens having any and all freedoms stripped from them and being taxed out the ass. Meanwhile, struggling to bring the WEC down is the ragtag resistance movement that goes by the rather imaginative name of the Resistance. The best of the best in terms of the WEC's military strength is an elite class of super soldier known as the Silencer. They're normally not known for questioning their orders. However, as the game opens, 3 Silencers are returning from a mission having spared a group of civilians despite being ordered to kill them for being part of the Resistance, which they weren't. As they traverse through the sewers, the trio are ambushed by a mech and 2 of them are killed. The surviving Silencer, his eyes open at last to the truth, decides to join the Resistance, and it's this guy that you're in control of throughout the game. Naturally, with the Silencer representing the very essence of WEC tyranny, he's given an exceptionally frosty welcome by most of the Resistance members. A scant few take a more immediate liking to him, but most of the others take a bit longer to come around. You can talk with some of them between missions at the Resistance base, but really the only one I'd recommend bothering with is Weasel, the arms dealer, mainly because he's the in-game shop. For the 1 or 2 of you out there who saw the original video and are curious, yes, this is still my ringtone. And I think I can safely say this is the one opinion I had from that original video that hasn't changed all that much. The music rocks. Messrs. Gardra Pay and Sega combined to make a techno soundtrack which I think has stood the test of time, with a driving beat that persists throughout each level but still doesn't get repetitive or overbearing, while the tracks for the Resistance hideout have a slower pace to them, adding to the feeling of taking a much-needed breather between missions. The graphics have held up fairly well also, at least as far as the maps and character models are concerned. Each of the levels has fully destructible environments which produce incredibly satisfying explosions. The colors pop nicely on each map as well, though one thing that caught my attention on this second go-round was there's a distinct lack of shadows, which can be kind of problematic when you consider that parts of some of the levels tend to loop around each other, and it can be hard to discern where you can or should be going, especially with no map. And while I'll admit the character models show their age a little bit, I still think they're well made, although their placement on the map could have been improved, as every now and again you'll come across a guard on patrol that looks like he's walking on thin air. There's FMV present in the game as well, and it's passable. There's a bit of interlacing going on, but that's to be expected from a game from this era, and the acting is fairly decent. During gameplay, you'll have a HUD down at the bottom of the screen. While it's not perfect from a mechanical standpoint, we'll get to that later, aesthetically speaking, it works nicely, telling you everything you need to know about your current loadout and status without crowding the screen. It's comprised of 5 sections which display from left to right your currently selected weapon, the ammo count for that weapon, your currently selected inventory item, your health, and your energy which powers your shields. Though one thing that always bothered me was the fact that in both this game and its sequel, your health bar is in blue while your energy bar is in red, despite it being the other way around in, practically every other game in existence. I mean, seriously, what possible point could there be to swapping the colors around? Now, yeah, sure, there's a heart icon next to the health bar and a lightning icon next to the energy bar, but when you're engrossed in the gameplay, in the heat of the moment, and you want to glance at the bars to see how you're doing, you're not going to be looking at the icons. You're going to be looking at the colors, and it is going to be misleading to a greater or lesser extent to anyone playing this game. First things first, as awesome as the music may be, when you get to the main menu, you'll probably want to turn it down a bit, as by default, it's just a touch on the ear-shattering side. Upon starting a new game, you'll be shown another cutscene to set up the story and give you the objective for the first mission, after which you're immediately teleported into said first mission. Now, this might not be all that big a deal, if the controls for the game were fairly standard. However, the controls for the game are anything but fairly standard. In fact, to anybody coming to them for the first time, they're an absolute bloody nightmare, and a tutorial level would not have gone amiss. Or at the very least, they could have teleported you into the Resistance base to let you get used to the controls and play around with them a bit before you get into the first mission. Now, yes, I know there would have been a manual and a reference card with the original release, and there's PDFs of said manual and reference card with the GOG release, but I mean, curiosamente, not exactly the clearest of control schemes. Now, some might say that's what the reference card is for, and it's good that it's included, but personally, I don't enjoy spending my first hour of gameplay stopping every 5 minutes going, wait, what does this button do again? We'll go over the controls in more detail in a bit, but first let's talk about what you'll be doing in the game. Crusader No Remorse is a mission-based shooter. There are 15 missions in all, and in each one you'll have a different objective, which you can refresh your memory on by using the data link in your inventory, but the method of completion is the same. Kill anything that moves on your way to the objective, interact with and/or blow up said objective, then find the teleport pad that takes you out of the level. Along the way, you'll encounter numerous types of enemies, including turrets and security systems, which can usually be deactivated if not just detonated, civilian employees of the WEC, who generally won't attack you, but they often have useful stuff on them, so if a stray bullet or two goes their way, who's going to notice? And the aforementioned guards, who in addition to their levitation abilities can spawn from the middle of nowhere. Between each mission, you'll end up at the Resistance base, where you can talk with other Resistance members, watch a TV showing WEC propaganda, shop for weapons and ammo with Weasel, or recharge your health and energy at these charging stations, which you can also find within the mission maps, but just be careful not to shoot them, as they can be destroyed. There are quite a few ways to deal with enemy personnel in addition to just shooting them. For instance, the hazards of the environment can be used to your advantage by, say, turning a valve and unleashing a stream of fire upon a conveniently placed guard or two. You'll also find the occasional mech that you can take remote control of and have it waltz in and spray bullets and mow down anything and everything unlucky enough to be in the same room with it. Hell, on lower difficulties, you don't even have to do that much. Just wait around a bit. They'll start shooting each other for your edification and delight. But now, dear viewer, we must return, as I promised we would, to the not-so-fun part of controlling the game, and that is controlling the game. Let's see if we can go over the controls without making things too difficult. Basic stuff first. You can move with the arrow keys or the number pad. Left and right turn you, while up and down move you forward and backward, but relative to the direction you're currently facing. You can also use the mouse to turn, but I never bothered with it, as for me, the mouse control was either way too sensitive or not responsive enough. You can also pull off more advanced movements by using the arrow keys in tandem with control or alternate. Space will either draw your weapon, or if you already have it drawn, fire. You can also draw your weapon simply by moving backward. In fact, it's slightly quicker that way. There is, however, no reload button. If you run out of ammo in your current clip, but you have spare clips, your gun will automatically reload the next time you press the fire button. Alternatively, you can just press Ctrl D to drop your gun and then pick it back up, and it'll somehow have a full clip. The Enter key is used to interact with objects within the environment, such as switches, chests, or lootable corpses. However, not only does the object of course have to be nearby, but you must also first press the S key to highlight the particular object you want to interact with. So, even with the most basic of actions for a shooter game, movement and shooting, the controls are a little on the tedious side. Now we'll get into the rest of the controls, or at least those you're most likely to use, and as you'll see, they're kind of complicated as well, even though they sort of make a certain kind of sense. Obviously, with space being the fire key, it has quite enough on its plate without you trying to make it the jump key as well, thank you very much. So, what is the jump button? The J key. Meanwhile, the U key uses your currently selected inventory item, although certain items have their own shortcuts without having to be selected, such as M for medkits, E for energy cubes, which refill your shield meter, and B to blow up any bombs you've placed. To cycle through your inventory, you press I, or O, and to cycle through your weapons, you press W, or Q. Although there's no reload button, you can still press the R key if you want. In this game, it toggles your targeting reticule.
So yeah, the controls. Cumbersome, I think, would be the best way I can describe them.
Now, the Crusader games were made with the Ultima 7 engine, or at least a more advanced version of it. And it should be noted, I've never played any of the Ultima games, so for all I know, this kind of control scheme could make perfect sense in those games. But here, not so much. Here's the thing though. I came into this revisit with the one thing sticking in my mind from the first video being the awkward controls, and I fully expected to lambast the game this time around for them. Now make no mistake, the control scheme for Crusader is awkward as hell. It is not the best, by any means. But it's actually not the worst aspect of the game. You can still get used to them. What is the worst aspect about Crusader is the janky movement of both the camera and the silencer. The camera doesn't scroll to follow you, instead recentering itself on you every so often, and it seems to do this based on the silencer's position on the map, rather than how far he's moved off center. I say this because you can manually center the camera by pressing Z, but there have been times when I would do so to try and see any upcoming hazards, but then, after moving not even a few steps, the camera would shift, I guess trying to center itself on where it thinks the silencer should be, and I would be almost completely off camera. Then when I would eventually get the camera settled down, it still wouldn't start following me properly until I manually centered it again. Then there's the silencer himself. As I'm sure you've noticed throughout the gameplay footage by now, the movement for the silencer's character sprite is not the smoothest in the world. Walking in the straight line is fine for the most part, though you can still kinda tell that it's moving maybe a little bit faster than he should. But when you're trying to turn, particularly while walking, the sprite tends to glitch and jump a little too far in the direction you're turning. Speaking of jumping, his actual jump has got to be the slowest animation I've seen, and half the time he won't even clear or land on something you feel damn sure he should be. A problem which I feel is exacerbated somewhat by the lack of shadows I touched on earlier, making it hard to judge distances, either vertical or horizontal. All told, there are 15 missions in total in Crusader No Remorse. I got through the third mission while playing normally before deciding that the myriad of issues present in the game were too much to deal with. But I wanted to see if maybe the story would improve, as thus far it hadn't really succeeded in gripping my attention. And besides, I just felt like venting my frustrations by blowing up anything and everything, so I activated cheats to see if that would better the experience. They did, but not for much longer. I only managed to get through another couple of missions before finally throwing in the towel, and even that was with the help of a map I found online. Minasan, I do believe we have a first on our hands. See, I knew coming into this review that I was in for a rough time. But at the same time, I wanted to give it the benefit of the doubt, and I told myself I was letting bad memories cloud my judgment. But, after having given it a far more critical look than last time, which is to say, having given it a critical look at all this time, I have to say that music aside, I just can't really find anything all that engaging about Crusader. The controls, while not unplayable, are still shite. The silencer's glitchy movements cause me way too many deaths. On lower difficulties, the AI can be just downright laughable. The game has not aged well at all, and for these reasons, for the first time in the show's history, I'm downgrading a game. Crusader No Remorse is, in my opinion, not even worth a look anymore. It is just plain worthless. Well, I hope you enjoyed this unplanned trilogy of mine as we go back and give my earlier videos a more proper review treatment. Thank you for watching and bearing with me, most of all, as we go through it. Regular viewers of the channel might know that there was one more game that I gave the sort of glorified Let's Play treatment, and that was Episode 1 of King's Quest 2015. And I will not be doing a revisit of that, at least not for the foreseeable future. And the reason for that is because it is an episodic game, and from a review standpoint, I'm still not really sure how I feel about episodic games. Like, do I treat each episode as its own game, or treat the whole collection of episodes as one game? I'm not sure. So maybe once I've gotten a clearer idea in my head as to how to look at episodic titles, I might go back and revisit King's Quest 2015, but for now I'm leaving it alone. And next time out on this show, it's back to newer stuff. Or at least as new as I can get around here, since I tend to look at older games. Anyway, thank you for watching, and in the meantime, I invite you, as always, to comment, like, share, and subscribe. Onegaishimasu. Jikai made. Sayonara.